Hey, what's going on there, folks? Earthmaster here, July 14th, 2019, 1:07 p.m. here on Sunday afternoon, and taking a look at Earthquake Live 3D. Right now shows a lot of activity occurring across the globe here. We had some fairly significant earthquakes happen within the last day or so. Definitely we were looking at this area over here towards the Indonesia Islands region for some further increased magnitude earthquakes here, and we've definitely seen it within that time period that we were kind of looking at. We can get rid of a few of these smaller quakes, and you can see exactly, well, let's just go about 5.8 and above there, and you can see we had a 6.6 just off the coast here of the Australia island here. Continent, definitely bigger than an island, and a couple of fives in there as well. The 6, let's see where that 7.3 went to. We're kind of missing it because of getting covered up there. There we go, 7.3 up here, kind of towards the Indonesia Islands region as well. Just there was something, there was definitely something brewing out there. We've seen a cluster of 5s and 4s prior to all this activity that took place here last night and today, and we're just kind of seeing that adjustment over here on the west side of the Pacific Ring of Fire. 6.1 also up here just off the coast of Japan region. That one there is a kind of an older earthquake there. The 7.3 down here near Indonesia, and also the 6.6 off the region of Australia, fairly new. As far as like any other major quakes around the globe, there just really isn't anything at the moment, at least on this side. Have to drop the magnitudes down to around a we can go like a 3 or 2.8 or somewhere around there to pick up any other activity. There was a little bit of activity up here, well, just off the where is it at exactly? Let me get a definite location for you and see. I'm showing well, 89 kilometers northwest of Ferme Nueve. That sounds, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Up there in Canada, 3.7. Doesn't show any felt reports on this side. Montana region did have a pretty good size earthquake up there as well that showed up on the Yellowstone seismographs. That's going to be this 4.8 or 4.0 right there, just right around just northwest of the Yellowstone area. So pretty interesting activity there. It's kind of like in the middle of where we've seen the earthquake activity in Washington there a couple days ago, and then of course the activity there in Southern California. So kind of like the midway point over here, but off to the inner mountainous area of the west right there. Let's take a look at well, let's see here. I'm gonna get to Southern California here in just a little bit. I just wanted to cover like the multitudes of earthquakes we're seeing out here in the western part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Like I say, we've seen some good sized movement here today and yesterday as well, like I mentioned with that significant quake there in Indonesia, 7.3. Today we can drop the date down a little bit and take a look at the activity. We're still seeing quite a bit of aftershock activity in that region, which is definitely expected. Let's see, that 4.6, that deep earthquake, I believe is an older one. But funny thing is, folks, before we even seen it, and we see this time and time again, is before we even seen these large surface quakes here, these 7.3 and also the 6.1 up here near Japan, and also the 6-pointer off the coast of Australia, we happen to see, hold on a second here. Yeah, the 6.6 off the coast of Australia, that is. Anyway, before we seen all that, we happen to see a lot of deep movement. Now I can go back a couple days here and show you guys all the deeper movement that we've seen prior to the surface quaking. We've seen this pretty significant 6.0 right here, kind of east of the Indonesia Islands region, close though, 495 kilometers below the surface. That's a pretty significant quake and a very strong earthquake, but very deep as well. And then you go up here towards the Japan region where we've seen that 6.1, and we've seen another deep earthquake here. That's going to be this 5.0 here. Whoa, hold on a second here. Let's see where that went to. Kind of hard. It looks like it's 6.1 there. I guess that 6.1 was pretty deep there. Not as deep as the other ones, 251 kilometers, but still a deep activity nonetheless. The other quakes I was looking at are these 4.7s, 4.3 over here. 4.3 is the one that's fairly deep, 457 kilometers below the surface there. So, you know, you just followed the line of deeper earthquake activity. We've seen a bunch over here by Fiji Islands as well. And of course, when we see that much large movement down below, we're highly expecting some significant quake up towards the surface like we've seen within the past 24 or 48 hours there. And of course that includes the 7.3 and also 6.6 over there in the Australia region there. So what's to come next? I think we just may see probably a little bit of a quiet spell. I'm thinking that is definitely a lot of earthquake activity taking place out here. Of course the aftershock will continue for quite some time over there in the Indonesia Islands region. But taking a look at California real quick, I'm going to go to a different map and show you guys the continued earthquake activity that is no doubt taking place over there. This here is the most recent quake. If you notice, or yeah, the most recent quake map from the Caltech website. If you notice, yeah, the number count is going down. It's now down to 9,622, and the reason because this map only shows the last week of activity, and of course those 6.4s and 7.1 that struck down there in Southern California is now off the charts and off of this scale. But don't let that number fool you. There's definitely continued earthquake activity. Like I say, there's a lot dropping off. All those yellow ones are probably going to drop off here pretty soon too. The yellow squares indicating some older earthquake activity, but lots of red in there, lots of blues. And if you take a look down there towards the southwest part of this swarming activity, there's a fault system, and we talked about this a little bit, called the the Garlock fault system. Garlock, yeah, the Garlock fault system right there. It kind of runs southwest to northeast right there, right through the town of Tehachapi, where we have that train station webcam showing. Now that fault system right there is kind of under a little bit of pressure right now. If you take a look at the a bunch of blue earthquake activity, blue squares indicating the last day. Now I did see some red squares indicating some really recent activity in that same area as well. This specific fault system runs directly into the San Andreas fault system, which is off the screen a little bit. I'll show you that here in a minute, but definitely some new changes. I noticed this last night that we started to see a swarm of earthquakes away from the 7.1 and 6.4 area, away from the main area that we're seeing, right? Just off to the southwest, roughly about, I don't know, about 25 miles or so from the main activity, but on a totally separate fault system. Now this fault system is not, it doesn't really produce strong earthquakes all that often. Let me see if I can show you guys the page about this system here. Blow this up just a tad bit here. Okay, this here is from the Caltech website right here, Southern California Earthquake Data Center. It talks about the Garlock fault system or fault zone, and the reason why I'm saying that is because it just has some significance with what's going on in the Ridgecrest area, and also how it has a connection somewhat heading over towards the San Andreas fault system. Now this fault system kind of runs opposite of what these vertical fault systems do. The vertical one, similar to the San Andreas fault system, kind of runs north to south along that plate boundary of the North American and Pacific plate there. This one kind of runs southwest to northeast, so kind of a different level, different direction, but still under pressure. And it's possible large earthquakes could occur on that one as well. Length of the fault is 250 kilometers. So I believe this is the second longest fault system in California. Let's see here. See the length right here, 250 kilometers. Nearest community, of course, Fraser Park, Tehachapi, Mojave, and Johannesburg. Most recent surface ruptures here, according to the folks here, are between, or it looks like, 1050 AD near Tehachapi and 1500 AD near Johannesburg. So we're looking at about 450 years or so, but 1500 from our time is roughly about what do we got here? Well over 500 years. Slip rate is between 2 and 11 mm per year, probably averages about 7 mm per year. The interval between major ruptures occur between 200 and 3,000 years, depending on the fault segment. Probable magnitudes on the specific fault zone are 6.8 to 7.6 magnitude. So there's no doubt that this activity that we're seeing on this fault zone could lead to something bigger, because it's very capable of it. The Garlock fault zone is one of the most obvious geologic features in Southern California, clearly marking the southern boundary of the area known as the Mojave Block, as well as the southern ends of the Sierra Nevada and the valleys of the westernmost basin and range province. While no earthquakes have produced surface rupture on the Garlock fault in historic times, and then it talks a little bit about cracks opened up during the 1952 earthquake due to the Kern County earthquake. Also, groundwater removal has triggered slip in the Fremont Valley area. The most recent quake on that Garlock fault zone was a 5.7 near the town of Mojave on July 11th, 1992. It is thought to have been triggered by the Landers earthquake just 2 weeks earlier. So with all this new activity we're seeing on a separate fault zone, it's good to keep your heads up, folks, because that it's still very active down there. At least one section of the fault has shown movement by creep in recent years. These faults, along with the freshness of scarps left behind from previous ruptures and the ongoing seismic associated with the fault zone, leave little doubt that the Garlock fault zone will rupture again in the future. So there's no doubt there's definitely going to be something happening on this fault zone, which, like I say, it kind of runs over towards the it kind of runs over here if you follow it. Let me see if I can bring this back up here. Hold on a second. It kind of runs over here towards the San Andreas fault system. The San Andreas sits right over here, southern section of the San Andreas fault. So once again, all that activity, or at least some of the activity, kind of creeping its way over on this specific fault system. Like I say, it's different than the north to south type fault with the San Andreas fault system here, but you know, there's still definitely this kind of just tells me, folks, that there's still definitely a lot of pressure and movement to be seen here pretty soon. This here is just the 1 day, all magnitudes here. So there's still a lot of activity just within 1 day. And then of course the Garlock fault section is this area right down here where this activity is occurring. Let me see if I can zoom in a tad bit. There we go. So let's see here. Shoot, hold on a second here. Let's see where this ends right here, right? Sometimes I have trouble getting the faults to show up here. It's probably because the earthquakes have been updating. I had it there for a second and then it wants to disappear. Not for sure what's going on. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But anyway, the Garlock fault system. Why is it doing that? It's so strange. The Garlock fault system runs right through here, where all these quakes are taking place. And there we go. Finally gets to go there. Central section. So there's a couple different sections of that fault system that runs over to the east, northeast area, where that earthquake swarming aftershock activity, whatever you want to call it, ends. Right, it ends there. That's all the earthquake activity from the 7.1. But like I say, this newer activity is starting to show up. Some new activity starting to show up on a separate section of the Garlock fault zone over here. And I've been watching that since last night, and it's definitely getting stronger. Headed towards the Tehachapi region. California City down here, Mojave, Tehachapi just over here to the west a little bit. But like I said, if you follow that line over here a little bit, it extends over right towards the San Andreas fault system here. So we're going to have to watch this pretty closely. See how much further it gets over there towards the west. And I say it's kind of creeping and migrating over that way. Because it's pretty visible. And I've got a mosquito that just... Okay. So yeah, we're going to have to watch this pretty closely. I was taking a look at the northward movement of the swarming that, like I said, we talked about this in update videos in the past about potentially reaching the Owens Valley fault system. Right now, it looks like most of the activity has stopped just short of that Owens Valley fault zone, which is roughly still about maybe 3 to 4 miles from that specific fault zone right there where 1872 rupture took place. I kind of look at, of course it's obvious we're going to see lots of earthquake activity right around Ridgecrest, right in the little lake fault systems there. But I kind of look at the areas where it's migrating out towards other fault systems and obvious signs of stress that this is producing on other fault systems, like the Garlock fault system here that runs, well, like I said, kind of directly into the San Andreas fault section down here. And yeah, I've always said it's a spiderweb complex of faults, and that's exactly what's going on. Very complex system down there, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You start moving little pieces around, other pieces try to fit in here and there, and then it's a very dangerous area down there for potential earthquakes. So just something we need to watch for sure. Let's see here. I believe that was, let's see, yeah. So yeah, once again, we'll keep a close eye on it, folks. Montana had a little earthquake up there, a little 4-pointer. See what the depth was on that one. That was about, let's see here. I think it's in the process of updating right now. Yep, there we go. So that was about 5 kilometers below the surface there. Yellowstone, I guess I can go ahead and bring that up real quick and show you guys that 4-pointer that showed up on pretty much all the seismograph stations here. Hold on here, I'm getting this all set up. Wasn't going to show it, but I think I probably should. There we go. 4-pointer is going to be that big red square or big red signature there on all the seismograph stations there. Of course, the closer you get up north and northwest towards the Montana region there, you get the a little bit more defined. Any type of earthquake activity occurring in the park is not really. I mean, I don't really notice anything out there right now that's showing up. It looks pretty quiet. No earthquake swarming or anything like that at Yellowstone National Park at the moment. Sometimes they do get it, and when they do, it could be pretty extensive and a lot of quakes in there. But shoot, man, for now we'll keep an eye on the activity in Southern California. Very active, like I said, across the western part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, and there was no doubt that was on the course to happen here. If you watch my last updated video there, we talked about the possibilities of a larger quake happening just because of all the swarms that were occurring out there right around that specific area. Wasn't for sure exactly how big it was going to be, but it definitely had potential to be pretty big, and we've seen that 7.3 take place up there. Australia one, that's kind of interesting there. I'll have to check back on that and see what may have triggered that. It's pretty interesting there. Anyway, folks, I'm going to jump off here, get this video uploaded, and then like I say, live stream is still running, and I will continue to keep it running. Get a live view of the Tehachapi train depot right now, and I think it looks like they were working on the tracks here a little bit ago. Anyway, earthquake activity still kind of showing up on the live data stations down here in the Ridgecrest area. Not as active, I guess, at least right now anyway, but still, it's still no doubt pretty active. So we got that live data coming in there. All right, folks, have a good day. We'll chat you guys a little bit later on the live stream if you stop on by. Peace.